We have such an incredible message to share with you today. Angie's going to share the story of her son, who at the age of 3, she realized something was off. At the age of 6, he was diagnosed. He was just really resistant to going to school. She knew that something was not right. At the age of 8, he was diagnosed with ADHD. And at that point, she started really seeking out alternatives. She did not want to go the medication route. So this is going to be a really valuable story because this kid now is happy. He's focused. He doesn't rebel going to school anymore. Their whole life has changed. My name is Dale LaCure, and I really do believe that we get to create the life that we want if we take the action steps. Here we go, Angie. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, please share this video. I know that there's someone out there that needs to hear this. Angie and I both are on a mission to get this message out, that there are solutions for our children. All right, Angie, take it away. So give us a little bit of background, like you knew at age 3, something was a little off, and then like how things kind of progressed and where you're at now.
So this is about my son who is currently 11 years old. He's about to be 12 in September. And as he was approaching the age 3 range, I just kept saying that he is so hard to raise. There was nothing that really stuck out to me specifically. It was just like he didn't listen very easily. He did not want to stay on task. He did not really connect with me that much. I mean, he would say the words, "I love you," but he wasn't able to connect with me emotionally on an emotional level. So there was a lot of things that I had noticed. And as he went from 3 to 5-ish, we're into preschool and things like that. As he's in preschool, I'm getting emails in the middle of the day that, he was being very rude to a child or he got into a fight with a child. And then when I go to pick him up, they would meet me at the door and say, "Angie, Jacob just wasn't this or wasn't that." And pretty much what it came down to, he either wanted to be left alone because he was very much a loner, or they would make him come into the group and do what the group was doing. And he had no interest. So he kept running back to be alone doing what he was doing before that made him happy. So there was definitely a few things during that age frame where I was like, well, what's going on here? His brain is definitely wanting to be in different places at different times. He's not wanting to go with the flow, which is fine. I was fine with that. I'm always about let kids be independent, if they want to be independent. As we got older and we were into 2nd grade is where things really started to become a struggle for him. It was more of a struggle for him to fight back his everyday fight or flight. It was a struggle for him to fight back his everyday anger. It was definitely a struggle for him to stay on task and to focus when the teacher just wanted him to sit in a group of, 3 other children. So a total of 4 children in a group. And he just wasn't interested in being in that group. So he'd get up and walk away. So there was so many different things. As we got closer to the age of 8, I realized that something had to be done about how he was thinking versus how we were thinking, as in my husband and I, because we would see time and time again that, let's say we go on a family outing, he would see and experience things completely differently and have an interest in completely different parts of the day than we thought that he would. There was definitely so much frustration in him that a lot of it was covered up by anger. So we're seeing from a parent just looking down at a child, we're seeing a child that's just mad all the time, right? He's so mad. He's throwing things. He's hitting his sister. He's kicking the back of the car seat when you ask him a question. He doesn't want to answer it. Like all these different things were happening. And anger was his first emotion. And then when you look really hard at it, when you started to really get into, wow, this is a little bit different, you'd see the emotional piece come in. And the emotional piece for him was very strong and it hung on for him. So when he was age 8, we took him to a psychologist personally on our own, not through the school. And we got a diagnosis. And the diagnosis was ADHD with reactive attachment disorder. So ADHD, a lot of people think hyper children, right? Well, Jacob has some hyperness to him, but it's not at the level that a lot of ADHD kids, they feel like they have no other way to go than to kind of go full bore on something, right? He can be like that in sports and things that he's enjoying. But for him, the emotional piece came in harder and stronger, and the frustration piece came in harder and stronger. So for him, he was an angry, frustrated, emotional child. He was also hyper. He was also unable to pull back from his hyperness when you get into those modes, but he was more of an angry, emotional child. As we move forward, and we found out his diagnosis, I'm doing research after research, and we started taking him to a holistic healer because I had read that if there's imbalances in the brain, that they can be altered with supplements and things. So we started to take him to a holistic healer, and she was the one that kind of cracked open the code of, your body is missing this, so you need to replace it with this. And I have to say, she was really, really helpful in the knowledge of things. And she tried to give him individual supplements, but it was very hard for him because the supplements that he was supposed to be taking, it was a lot for his age. And it was a lot of pills 3 times a day. And then we'd have to break open the pills. So it was a little bit hard. But one thing that I learned from that was my child, Jacob, he did not sleep. He would not fall asleep, and then he would wake up multiple times in the night. He even experienced night terrors, which is very common with ADHD children to have night terrors. He would get into these modes of not sleeping, and it would last for months. Well, then I found out that he was lacking magnesium. His body needed magnesium, and that one little change helped his sleep. And that's where I was like, okay, what are we on to here, right? So more research, more gut, everything is stemmed from the gut. And I needed to wrap my head around, what does that mean, right? How do I tangibly fix that for my child and for people in my family? So as he was age 10, I was having my own issue myself in my own life with depression and things like that. And I was looking for answers for myself. And the night that I was going to delete Facebook, because I was just kind of done with the world. You know how when you get sad and depressed, you don't want to deal with people sometimes. So I was going to delete Facebook. And instead of deleting it that night, I actually saw someone speaking out about their anxiety and their depression and sadness and things. So as a mom, I started researching what she was talking about when she said it stemmed from the gut. And what happened was we ended up falling into knowledge of this awesome, comprehensive, synergistic product system for kids that literally was the answered prayer that we had been looking for, because I was not a mom who was ready to jump into putting my kid on medications, because both of my children are adopted, and their history of where they came from, addiction is a piece of that. So for me, I was not interested in putting my kids on meds because that could lead to bigger and worse things in their life, right? So for me, holistically, seeing the results that I saw with just the magnesium and then experiencing results myself from the gut-brain axis, I was like, okay, this is where we need to be. So when the kids pack came out, that's what we started to put him on. And once we started to put him on that, it brought everything to balance for him. His anger is no longer his first emotion. In fact, that emotion is only seen like this much anymore. It happens more when you are pulling him away now from something that he loves versus asking him to do something, which is when it used to happen. He used to be a loner child. He would be in his room all the time. I'd have to go get him. Now he's always a part of things. He wants to be with us in the living room. He wants to be with us in the car. He used to want to jump out of the car. He'd be like, I don't want to be in this car anymore. But he wants to be with us now. And it's very normal for him to feel that way. And the other piece of him with the reactive attachment disorder, this disease is crippling to children because it is a trauma-induced emotional disorder. So they do not feel loved. They do not feel connected. And once we got him on these products and we were able to see full circle where he could be as a individual himself and not trying to make him do things anymore, he came out of his room one day and I was standing in my kitchen, and something that this child never said with emotion behind it before was, I love you, with emotion behind it. He would say, I love you when we'd say, I love you to him. But for him to truly walk up and do it on his own and have emotion behind him, I was standing in my kitchen and he had just come out of his room after being on these products for 3 weeks. He had come out and he put his arm around me and he looked at me and he said, Mom, I love you. And he just put his one arm around my waist. And I was just like, Oh my gosh, this is so huge. And then as that happened, I noticed that his nights after school were not so hard anymore. You know, like it was almost like the 2 to 3 week mark of being on the balance of these products. Things had started to really click for him. He wasn't feeling as frustrated coming off the bus. He was coming home and starting his homework all by himself, which, let me tell you, used to be a physical fight of grabbing the backpack, putting it on the table, making him unzip it and be a part of the process. And he literally he does it on his own now. He gets home, he does his homework, he knows what he has to do now, and he knows that that's a part of his world now, and that it needs to be a part of his world. And you know, I think that it all comes from he's connecting with the process, because as a child who has ADHD and you have what's called hyper focus, you can totally focus yourself over here, and whatever you're supposed to be doing over here is not something that your brain naturally would flip to. So making him sit at a table to do his homework was something that was totally unheard of for him. It couldn't be done. It couldn't physically be done and held when he was not able to be balanced. Well, now that he's balanced, he knows that he needs to sit down and eat. He knows that he needs to sit down and do his homework. And he knows that, and he does that easily. So once we noticed all that, we started noticing how much we would see him with a book in his hand, because this child loved to try to read in the past, but he could never sit and read. Now he lays in his bed and reads all the time. He reads in the car everywhere we go. And when I say everywhere, it gets a little bit cumbersome. Like we were trying to get dressed to go swimming the other day, and he's like putting his swim shorts on, hopping on one foot with one shoe on because he's got a book in his hand. You know what I mean? Like it's an occupational hazard in a way. But I mean, what a great problem to have, right? So of course we have to be like, Jacob, put the book in the car, get dressed, go swimming, then you can have your book again, you know. But that's our struggle now. Instead of, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that, right? And a lot of people say, well, you know, he's 10 now. No, when he was 10, a lot of people are thinking, well, when he's 10, you know, when this is when we found the products, when he was 10, he was still acting the same way that he did with putting things on and getting out the door and doing multi-directional and step things as he did when he was 7 and 8. It was the same mentality for him. He wasn't able to connect with the idea of it. And children with ADHD and right, you know, guys, for those of you listening, if you're not sure what's going on with your child, if they're younger and you're feeling a little unsure, the right brain takes over, and it doesn't allow the left brain, which is our analytical thinking and our basic everyday simple things. It doesn't allow the left part to pull in on the right part. So the creative mind takes off. And when it takes off, these children feel like they're living in their own world, and they don't know that there's a world going on the left side. They don't understand that. So try to take frustration, if you can, out of the mix and understand that. And there's actually an assessment for a right brain child to see if your child is right brained. And that assessment is something that I took for my son a long time ago. And it opened up a whole new world for me of how he was thinking. Wow. So I just wanted to throw that in there because knowledge is power, guys. Absolutely. Knowledge is power. And if you can get the right information. So now we have a child who he's always loved baseball. He is amazing at baseball. He's always loved hockey. He is amazing at hockey because he's able to find that balance to be a team player and be on the team and be a part of the team and understand team, which before he was all about, he wanted to do better. So that's happening. School is a lot easier. He understands the process a lot more. And then on top of it, he's eating everything that he can possibly try. He never ate before anything other than mozzarella sticks, pizza, and like just these things that were horrible for him. And I try to put healthy foods in front of my kids, but then you get to the point of depletion as a parent and you just kind of give up, right? And now he is feeling from the inside out that he wants better things. His favorite thing is celery with either peanut butter or apple butter on it. And I mean, celery was like, he wouldn't even look at the bag of celery before, you know? So these children are going through so many imbalances that we may not notice are really impacting how they act and how they live in their own space. And if you can get into why, if you can get into the why of how they're acting and why they're acting that way and get a full understanding and a better understanding of it, and you can give them what their body's missing, something as small as giving my child an orange flavored magnesium chew. Now, then he slept through the night. I was like, there's more to this. So once we figured all this out and we started moving forward with the kids pack, I could talk all day about just little things that I see. Like, he used to hate the dog because the dog would jump up on his lap and he wasn't expecting it. And maybe he was trying to do something and the dog would jump on it. Now the dog jumps up and he goes, hey, buddy. You know, he's like welcoming the dog. But before, the dog was a huge hazard for him. It would be a fight or flight move for him, you know? So as a parent with a child, my advice today is you need to get into the why of what's really going on with your child, because I have 7 years of research under my belt from my son and other children in my life. And I really feel like if you give them what they need, you can bring balance to their world, that they can feel complete. Guys, my son felt so out of place for so long, and he wasn't out of place, but he felt out of place. He felt out of place in the family. He felt out of place at sports, out of place with friends. When like someone would come to the school with like, you know, a traveling zoo or something, if he didn't get to hold the little animal, he would feel like everyone hated him. You know what I mean? Like, kids deal with this stuff all the time. And another piece of his world was anxiety. Anxiety was through the roof for him, but it was internalized. So he would internalize the anxiety, and you wouldn't notice it as much, but he had a lot of worry in his world. He had a lot of worry that things were not the way that he thought they should be. And he had a lot of worry that he was not loved or liked. And when you can rid the child of anxiety, you're going to get so many rainbows out of them. I say rainbows because there were so many dark clouds for him before. And I don't know how to say it any other way, because I say it the same for myself. I lived in a dark cloud world as a mom, facing anxiety, depression, and a lot of hardship. And then I look at my son, who has come out, and he's got so many rainbows. When I think about what makes him happy now, it's all the things that for years I was trying to show him could make him happy. And now they just make him happy. Animals in his life, family trips, you know, hopping in the car and going to swim at a creek, like whatever. He loves it. He embraces it. But before, he just sat there and he was physically a part of it, but not emotionally.
Wow.
So
wow,
that's a summary of his life.
So when you say give your child what they need, you mean that in terms of the physiology, like the supplementation, or how can you explain what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, when I say give your child what they need, they're walking around imbalanced, okay? And I myself, from teenage years, I'm 41 right now, from teenage years, I knew for years that my hormones were off. I knew it. I could feel it, but I didn't know how to express it, right? And every doctor's like, you're fine, blood work's fine, everything's fine, right? So come to find out, I had a huge imbalance, and now I'm able to bring forth what I knew I needed, and I'm able to supplement and offer my body what I need every morning. And by doing that, it brought such balance for me. For instance, just in a small story, is I no longer have mind racing all night, which is a form of excess cortisol in your body. My anxiety would drive my anger, which would cause me to fight with my son. So now we're both living in fight or flight, right? And we're trying to live in this household, but at the same time, my husband and my daughter are trying to live with us, and nobody's getting along. It was total chaos and frustration. So when you give your child what they need, meaning their supplementation for what their body is truly lacking, guys, here's the bottom line. Your children, when they are born, whether it be vaginal or cesarean, their microbiome, meaning their gut makeup, is different. So if you have a cesarean or a vaginal birth, that makes the children that you are birthing different from another child that is birthed that way too. So I had to deal with a microbiome that was already destroyed in a way from a cesarean birth from the biological mother of my children. And then moving forward, I had to deal with him not wanting to eat certain things. He was also a toddler who was very, very active, but would crash with his sleep and then wake up from the sleep. So he wasn't sleeping. His energy was very inconsistent. And if you look back, now that I know what I know, knowledge is power, people. Remember that. When you look back, when I look back, I look at like 1 and 2 years old and what he was like, and 2 and 3 years old, and 3 and 4. And I look back at all these patterns of sleep and food and energy and crashing. I mean, we'd find him sleeping anywhere and everywhere, but the sleep would never last. It would be like crash, and then he'd never be able to stay asleep. But I look back, and then I think of how many ear infections he had and how he was on so many antibiotics and all of these things, right? And he wasn't able to be breastfed because I'm his adoptive mom, right? So all of these things, and I think back and I think, okay, now I know why he's struggling now. He's struggling because his gut microbiome never had a chance from the beginning, because I didn't know enough to supplement with more than the basic vitamins off the shelf, right? And now that I'm giving him everything that he needs, I mean, when we're talking about supplementation, I'm talking about at such a massive level where his body's able to lift itself emotionally, physically, as also like he's able to cognitively be more sharp. He's able to connect with people and their thoughts and understand that he's a piece of that and he doesn't need to be the only thing in that conversation. He has just a better understanding of himself. And that's the bottom line of all of this. Your child needs to feel confident and feel like they're secure in their own skin. Yes. And so many children don't. They don't. And I see it all day, every day, and it breaks my heart, because it's like all you need to do is these little tweaks naturally that isn't going to give them side effects. Because that was the other thing. I used to watch other people's children for a while, and the side effects that I saw from certain meds scared me. So when Jacob got his diagnosis, I was like, I don't want him to not have his med. Like, what if I'm the mom who leaves and forgets his med and I can't deal with him for, within the next hour because he missed his med? You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to be in that position, because I had watched many other children in his life be like that. And that was just the road I wasn't interested in going down. Plus, they were adopted and we have a history there that could lead to other things. So for me, it wasn't the choice I was interested in taking. So when this came along and this encompassed everything that the holistic healer was trying to do one by one with supplements, this is easy for him to take. It's kid flavored. It's fruit punch flavored, and he gets full results. And he's just this happy, complete child now. And let me add to this too, Dale. When he was in 5th grade, a teacher approached me, his IEP teacher approached me, because he had been evaluated 6 months prior and we were about to do another evaluation. And he was on the products 3 weeks when they did the evaluation. They pulled me into their classroom from a book fair that I was working to tell me that in 5th grade, he had gone from reading a 3rd and 4th grade level, comprehension, reading, and understanding and language at a 3rd and 4th grade level as a 5th grader, to a 7th and 8th grade level being on the products 3 weeks. Wow. 3 weeks.
Unbelievable.
So you can understand why I want to talk about this all day long.
Yeah, I get it. And I pray that the people that need to hear this story will. So please, please, please share this video. I know there are so many parents struggling. The thing that just like lights this fire underneath me is knowing the future of Jacob, knowing how different his life is from this point forward, knowing that he is comfortable in his own skin, that he's joyful, that he's like a regular kid, enjoying relationships, enjoying sports, sleeping well, being happy. Like, that's what it's all about. Our children deserve this. This is just such amazing information. I cannot thank you enough.
And Dale, his confidence is through the roof. He used to hit himself as like a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. He'd hit himself and say, "I'm so stupid." He would do this all the time, and it would rip my heart out. And now he's so confident. He knows what he should be doing. He knows how to do it. He knows how he feels when he does things well and when he feels good about himself. And he just moves forward in life with dreams and just value, for himself. And it just feels so good.
So by him healing, he's helping to bring his best, which is impacting the world, impacting other kids. I mean, this is so huge. I mean, the ripple effect is unbelievable. We just want our kids to be happy, right? They don't come to this planet to be defiant and to be rebellious and to be angry. There's something physiologically going on. And if we can get to the root of it, and we are getting to the root of it here, what a different life these kids and families will have. So Angie, thank you so much
Absolutely.
for sharing your story. This is amazing. Please share it. There are people that need to hear this, that need hope, and those kids need us more than ever today. All right. Thank you so much. Amazing.